Is there an epidemic of loneliness? I personally, this is like a really weird perspective to have. I think I'm a lot different than a lot of other people in the way that like, I kind of like being alone a lot of the time. So from my perspective, I think there's an epidemic of people feeling lonely and not feeling comfortable being by themselves. I don't think that's the only thing, and there's a lot more to it than that. But I do think that's a factor that people just don't really talk about a lot. Because there's a lot of people that like back in the day used to work by themselves most days. Think about like a farmer or something like that. Being lonely doesn't equal being alone. Yeah, but like then that becomes very complex to talk about. Well, anyway, let's look at what they have to say.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. He held his phone close, eyes searching for privacy. The man scarcely noticed the subway riders around him, or the 90-year-old artist sketching his hunched frame from across the train. In the 7 decades since Alex Katz first drew the outlines of commuters on New York City's early morning trains, the chattering riders and newspapers had all but gone. In their places were people who rode alone, together.
That's really cool. I don't know why. I just think that's so fucking cool. That like this same guy used to draw pictures of people looking at the newspaper, and it's now people looking at their phone.
Light in their eyes, reflecting the glow of their smartphone. That was a quote from the Dallas Morning News. This short imagery is something that we see and all understand, but never really think deeply about. Why does it seem like less people are talking to each other in public? Why do we collectively prefer the dim glow of a smartphone screen?
I think also another reason why people don't like talking in public is that the amount of people that get recorded in public without their consent has a chilling effect on people wanting to interact with each other. Because like you never know if somebody's trying to talk to you for like a YouTube video or something like that. Or if you say the wrong thing, you could get like recorded and then put on the internet and people like shit on you. I think there's a lot of people that are kind of a little bit on edge because of that. And I don't think that's the main reason. I just think that's a reason that exists. That's all.
Do you remember your childhood neighborhood?
Yeah.
Chances are, you probably felt like it was one big family. Everybody knew each other, celebrated together, and would offer help when needed. But in recent decades, this seems like it's no longer the case. People seem to keep to themselves more. And as a side effect, people are more lonely today than ever before.
I think that for my neighborhood, the reason why it was the case is because like everybody's kids were friends. So like I know my neighbors, sure, but like I'm not actively spending time with them. But like if I had kids and they had kids and the kids were hanging out, then I would know them way better.
The number of men without any close friends has increased 5 times since 1990, and 10 times for women, though the total percentage of men feeling lonely,
I wonder why women it's a lot less,
is higher. On top of this, 3/4 of Gen Z report feeling lonely. Why have we drifted from each other? What is going on here? The trend started before the pandemic and even before smartphones, so it has to be something structural within society. But what?
I still think that like there's a big component of this that people view, like they see media like movies, TV shows, Instagram, and Facebook of like all these people hanging out and having fun together, and like they feel like they need to be doing that. And so there's like a sense of like perceived loneliness and FOMO because you're missing out on these opportunities. Whereas like before, you didn't really see those things happening, or they were portrayed to you in a way that was more authentic. Like, you know, you saw this happen, but it was like very rare. Yeah, they don't see the reality exactly.
Working on this episode for many months. It's an exploration of the loneliness epidemic.
And the reason why I'm bringing this point up is that like, I think obviously this video is going to talk a lot about like the lack of community, the lack of third spaces, the lack of, you know, like interaction, human interaction, the lack of social friction, like having to call a landline and have the parent pick up and ask to talk to the kid that you're friends with. Like, you know, all of these things probably are going to be covered in the video. But I think that that's not the only vector in which loneliness is created. I think there's also the perception of loneliness that's gotten a lot larger as well.
In this episode, we'll see the definitions of loneliness, its origins, its causes, and who's most affected.
What do you mean by third spaces?
But this episode isn't all bad news. We'll explore some very real ways to combat loneliness. This isn't the kind of video I normally do, but I think it's an important...
But third spaces, by the way, is besides work, besides home, besides school, besides home. So like going to a card shop, going to a mall, going to a skate park, something like that. Another community place where people gather to get together that they don't necessarily have to be at. YMCA. Yeah, there you go.
Topic. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it.
And they don't cost money? Well, some do, some don't.
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
But in general, like, they're very easy to access.
Loneliness is on the rise globally, and it's being declared a health risk. A top US health expert has warned that loneliness can be as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes per day.
Holy shit.
In 2017,
I'm not really sure exactly how much credibility I give that, because like some people, I think that's probably true, but is that true on like a general sense? Because can be, right? You use the word can be. Well, video games can be more addictive than heroin for somebody. But is this the norm? Probably not.
former US Surgeon General Vivek Murthy recognized the growing trend in loneliness based on scientific research. Vivek phrased the phenomena as the loneliness epidemic. But to understand this winding and twisting story, we have to start at the fundamentals. What does it mean to be lonely?
Being alone isn't being lonely, okay.
People sometimes confuse loneliness and solitude. But the fact of the matter is, being alone and feeling lonely are not the same. You can feel lonely even though you're physically with other people, or
I've never experienced that. And I know other people have that. Like, this is, it's kind of interesting for me to watch something like this, because I just don't, I have? Okay, yeah, that's really interesting.
can enjoy solitude without feeling lonely. In a nutshell, loneliness is not always the result of being alone.
Okay.
It's more of a mental state of being. From a neuroscientist point of view, loneliness is actually a state of hypervigilance. It makes you feel unsafe and unsatisfied with your social interactions. It's a type of emotional pain signal. The pain is telling your brain that you need to find someone to talk to. That's what loneliness is, the difference between how much social connection you want and how much you feel you actually have.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I agree with that, sure.
It can be summed up by this line: loneliness is feeling disconnected from others, even when they're right next to you. If it's temporary, it's the equivalent of being hungry. But when it becomes chronic, that's when it starts affecting your health.
That's interesting. Like, I usually feel like I'm pretty disconnected from other people myself. But I don't think that really makes me feel lonely. Yeah, it isn't about you? Well, no, yeah, of course it's not about me, but I'm talking about it because it's me watching the video, right? Yeah, I'm okay.
Chronic loneliness can trigger a fight or flight response, and when that becomes bad enough, it becomes ingrained in our nervous system, resulting in anxiety, depression, and even anger.
The pandemic poured fuel on a fire that was already burning.
Dr. Vivek Murthy, the U.S. Surgeon General, says loneliness is an epidemic, the focus of an 80-page advisory he is releasing today.
Jesus.
We're used to thinking about smoking and obesity as clear public health concerns.
Yeah.
So you're saying loneliness is comparable to smoking in terms of the detriment to your health?
Yeah, in terms of the risk that it poses for premature death, yes.
The cure, Dr.
I'd like to have him expand a little bit on that, because I think that is, I don't believe that. I don't know, like evidence. Yeah. Like, what do you mean by that? Because it's become so vague. Because, like, for example, loneliness often, like, is he using the link between loneliness and suicide? Is he using the link between loneliness and substance abuse, and then correlating deaths to suicide and substance abuse as derivative from loneliness? Like, I don't know. So it's very, like, I'm not sure I immediately buy that. I hear something like that seems insane to me. I'd want to hear and know everything about it. But I do think that, obviously, you think about a lot of the, like, mass shooters, school shooters, stuff like this. Almost all of them were lonely, or sorry, actually, I can't really say they were lonely, but, like, they didn't have a lot of friends.
Murthy says is not only personal change, but societal change as well.
You're talking about changing the social fabric. That's been decades in the making.
It's been decades in the making, but it's also something that I'm confident that we can address if we put our mind to it and if we act together.
We'll get to more of the health effects a bit later. But for now, let's ask the question: how did we get here?
We got here because we brought ourselves here. We wanted to be here. I think this is, like, in a really weird, abstract way, a lot of people wanted to have this happen. They wanted to be able to not have to call a landline. They wanted to have cell phones. They wanted to be able to be on their computer all the time. It's like WoW, about how, you know how they made the game less social over time by listening to the player base? Yep. I think it happened in real life. Yep, people wanted convenience. And social interactions in a lot of cases are inconvenient.
Loneliness is not a new thing. It's been around for as long as humans have. Today's loneliness seems like a simple cause and effect. As society became more complex, with industrialization, urbanization, and a faster pace of life, people became lonely. But it's not that straightforward. Something major happened in the 1960s and 70s that became the bedrock for the Loneliness Epidemic Declaration in 2017.
It was a huge cultural shift.
In Western
like
nations,
Vietnam and everything.
It was the social movements of the 1960s and 70s that seemed to accelerate this phenomena. A 2023 QC research piece on loneliness by Alan Greenblatt would mention that, quote, the mass social movements of the 1960s helped shift people's attention from local concerns to more national issues.
I think this is... Hey, Baldy! Shut the fuck up. Number 2, a lot of people, like, this is what my dad said this at least. He said that he thought a lot of these, like, protests and everything like that were people that were really protesting because they didn't want to get drafted. Because people were getting drafted into Vietnam, and because of that, they were protesting because they didn't want to have that happen. Which, to be fair, I could definitely see why.
In other words, local communities mattered less, and it was all about changing the national status quo.
Yeah.
According to Allen, this eventually resulted in a, quote, decreased number of social gatherings and eroded organizational participation, end quote. For a commentary on the cultural mood at the time, at least in the UK, you can look no further than the Beatles.
Oh, boy.
According to Paul McCartney, the 1966 Beatles song, Eleanor Rigby, was a broad commentary on the social changes of the 1960s happening at the time.
That's interesting. I always thought that song was about, like, some, like, like Salem days.
You can see it in the lyrics, quote, all the lonely people, where do they all come from? All the lonely people, where do they belong? Look at all the lonely people. In the 1970s, things only got worse. This period would be famously known as the Me Decade. Why? Because a form of hyper-individualism began to express itself within society. As Yuval Levin articulates in the Fractured...
Well, also you have to keep in mind that, like, the reason why individualism was so popular is because a lot of people, like, my dad and I talk about this a lot, and, like, obviously his experience isn't just, like, the only person that's, like, ever existed at that time, but a lot of the reasons why people trended much more towards individualism was because the collective nature of society and culture was oppressive. It was, like, tremendously oppressive. And because it was so oppressive, that's why this happened. It's not like it just happened out of the blue.
Public. The 1970s saw high inflation, high crime, an explosion of single mothers, and the eroding of family structures. Why collectively care about changing the world, or even the local community, when everyone has their own problems to deal with?
Exactly.
The 70s saw tensions between different sects of society grow. Divorce rates would more than double between 1960 and 1980.
And also, like, I do think that this is going to be kind of a controversial take, but I do think that at this point, religion was, like, kind of falling off, right? And, like, compared to now, like, religion was, like, really, really good, really high. But I think that, like, a lack of, like, a shared, like, moral value system, I think also hurt the amount of people that were, like, willing to think about their fellow man. Because while you don't need religion to dictate morality, a lot of people do. And a lot of people, well, I don't want to do this bad thing because then the devil's going to set me on fire forever. I think that a lot of people, there's a reason why they're God-fearing Christians. There it is. Religion is absolutely a tool of keeping people, like, involved with their community.
Society was rapidly changing,
and religion is coming back
a great
now.
Upheaval.
I've noticed
From
that.
around this time, society lost its cohesive glue. People would break out from the crushing conformity and turned inwards towards the satisfaction of individual wants and needs. People moved away from tradition and took their own paths in life. Of course, this resulted in more freedom of expression and less repression. But Levin states
Oh boy.
that the price we paid for this new freedom has been high. Quote, "We have let loose a scourge of loneliness and isolation that we are still afraid to acknowledge as the distinct social dysfunction of our age of individualism." End quote. In other words, loneliness has thrived and evolved from our increasing individualism. Filmmaker
That's probably true. He's right about that.
David Hoffman speaks to Rushworth Kidder, a man born in 1944. His historically massive generation, called the baby boomers, would come to maturity in the 1960s and 70s.
Yep.
He describes his lived observations of witnessing the dissolving of society.
We're made for each other. There is a sense in which society matters because we're part of it and we need to participate in it. It's not going to work all by itself. And what happened in my generation, it seems, again...
I think that's probably true. Like, how many of you guys, whenever you go to vote locally, you don't know what, like, 90% of the things on the local ballots are? Interesting. Very interesting. But, like, you're also, at the same time, you're also well-informed about, let's say, Trump being taken off the ballot in some country. Or not country, in Colorado. Some state. You're also well-informed about, you know, like, what Biden did. And so, like, what I'm saying is, like, people get focused more on an abstract idea that they have less control over rather than things that they do have immediate control over. Like, in local government, you can make changes way more easily than you can on a federal level. Like, I mean, come on, it's fucking obvious, right? Because there's less people you've got to go through. So, I think that this is, and also, like, is this a learned type of ignorance that's been projected by media or by the government itself in order to make themselves less accountable? I don't know.
And again, is people coming up to that realization and then just sort of something turning off, and off they drift off into sort of separate orbits, flying around as kind of unattached asteroids out there. There needs to be, it seems to me, if society is going to hold together, that sense of social cohesion in which each of us, as part of the community, says, I've got a responsibility to this. It's not a formal responsibility. It's not law. It's just that I care about this society and I'm part of this. Increasingly concerned that whatever the gravity is that holds the asteroid in orbit is just beginning to dissolve.
Well, I think that a lot of people are less connected to their culture and their community because they're more connected to an online community. They're more connected to, like, an identity group. You know, for example, like, now you're no longer, you know, like, oh, I live in Austin, Texas. It's like, oh, well, you know, I'm part of, like, this group of people on the internet, or I'm part of this group of people that's, like, international or whatever. And so I think that that's really the difference, is that people just find an identity somewhere else instead.
And these people again and again are just sort of out there wandering. We never, ever in the history of the world experienced anything like the baby boom that followed World War II, and we will never experience it again. This was that sort of one-time phenomenon. And what we see in the 60s may be as simply explained as saying that's the maturing of that tremendous crush of population, which finally didn't have the elbow room, and finally needed to break out and say, I'm me.
This is all to say...
Well, I just think that a lot of that probably was a massive result of... Because, like, you think about the 50s, right? The idealistic 50s. And think about how bad that would be if you weren't part of that mold. Do you see what I'm saying? So, like, a lot of people, obviously good times. Well, not for a lot of people, though.
The generations following the boomers grew up with strong individualism already embedded in society. Individualism came to prominence...
And there's a social oppression to it that... like, we don't really have as much of nowadays. And I think that level of social oppression is one of the big reasons why this happens.
In the 1960s and 70s, and
why
never
people
really
wanted to be
left.
individuals.
There were, of course, periods where this did improve, but since the 2000s, social interaction has taken a nosedive.
Oh, yeah.
You see, Orson, loneliness is a disease of the spirit. And people who have it think that no one cares about them.
Are you saying that Earthlings make each other lonely?
No, sir, I'm saying just the opposite. That they make themselves lonely. They're so busy looking out for number one, they don't have room for two.
It's too bad everybody down there can't get together and find a cure.
But here's the paradox, sir.
I think that's true. And I think also, like, the focus that people have on, like, social media, Because like if you think about a lot of social media, it's like fundamentally narcissistic. Like all you're doing on social media with like making your account and curating your account is talking about yourself and making things about yourself, involving yourself into things, comparing yourself.
Because if they did get together, they wouldn't need one. Isn't that Zen-like?
Generation X and the millennials settled into a hyper-individualistic world, and by 2007, Gina Gustafsson from Uppsala University would state that society is undergoing, quote, the slow but steady weakening of shared collective identities, norms, and culture, and the concomitant rise of the ideal of the independent individual, end quote. Broadly speaking,
I'm not sure I agree with that. I think that people have just replaced their local identities with other identities. I feel like that's the case constantly. And like you'll see it all the time, like in chat, for example, where I'll say something that is like for example, like the other day I was talking about like, can kids consent to getting like a tattoo or something like that? And I said, yeah, kids obviously can't do that. And then somebody turned it into like, can kids consent to like getting their gender changed? Because like their identity is so wrapped up in this idea that they're unable to see anything from any perspective. And like if they just hear these words, it's like a Pavlov like fucking dog salivating response, where it's like you're just instantly, oh, I know what to say now. I know what to say. I heard the thing. I heard the word. I say the thing. Marco Polo. And so I think people are absolutely attached still to identities, but I don't think they're local identities. Careful saying this on Twitch? Why? I'm never careful about anything that I say. And actually, that's not true. I am actually very careful about what I say, and I try to say it in the best way possible. But I'm never afraid to say something that could be taken out of context.
My generation, millennials, and Generation X were the most individualistic generations of all. That is, until Generation Z. You guys got the shortest end of the stick. You came of age during the explosion of the most individualistic tool known to man, during curated algorithms tailored to the desires of the individual. In other words, social media. High schools and universities.
Yeah, I got on social media at 14. Like I was on it as soon as I could be.
With people physically sharing the same space, but with every idle minute, a phone is pulled out. This is something that wasn't even the case 15 years ago. Of course, technology isn't inherently a bad thing. It is a tool. It can improve our lives. But if we strip away the benefits of convenient connection, what are we left with? A screen that separates us from the real world and the people around us. A device that consumes our attention and time. A platform that keeps us entertained, but separated.
Because somehow, even with all of our unprecedented technology, no one has yet solved what I'll call the other gamer's dilemma. That when you shut your computer screen, power down your phone, take off the VR headset, there you are, alone.
What's the problem with that? Yeah, that's the best part. Thank fucking God. Holy shit, it's been a long day. All right, yeah, I'm gonna go lay down, man. Go on a walk or something, like, fuck.
In your room.
Now, this is all known and common knowledge, but what's surprising is what's next. There's a hidden force that's causing people to feel lonely, and it's hardly ever talked about.
Yeah, people can't afford to go out. Yeah, I think everybody knows about that. So yeah, it's like, like, it's weird to me because, like, I'm a very, like, I don't like saying I'm introverted because I think it's cringe, but if you were going to define introverted, you would basically say you're like me, naturally. And so a lot of times whenever I say that I don't like being around other people, people that are extroverted and much more social just simply can't comprehend that. And I can explain to them, I don't want to be around anybody. And they say, no, it's okay, it'll be fun, right? Or no, you'll be glad that you did it, or something like that. It's draining as fuck. It's extremely draining. And I'm thinking to myself, am I doing that to extroverted people that are being alienated and isolated by social media? I think I am. I think I'm doing the same thing that I'm complaining about. Because from the same perspective, it's just the opposite direction. Because, like, I think that there are a lot of people that feel this way, And I don't really know how to address it, right? Because I'm completely different from them. It's like, how do you solve the problem of a parrot? How can you think like a parrot? You can't. It's a parrot. And obviously people that are extroverted aren't as different as people and parrots, but at the same time, it's a completely different foundation of thinking.
We are about to become a society by the turn of the century. There will be 8 times as many people over the age of 60 and half as
many people over the... Oh, right.
Many kids under the age of 5. Is this the world we want?
Aging society.
Do we want a lack of kids? Do we want a lack of ability to create households? The happiest, most prosperous, most purposeful people...
Well, people don't have kids. There's 2 reasons why people don't have kids. Number 1, people don't have kids because they can't afford to have kids. Number 2, people don't have kids because settling down with a person creates the idea of FOMO, and because the internet provides the illusion of infinite options, people don't want to settle down with any individual person. I think those are the 2 main reasons.
In America, our middle-class families, and we have made a concerted decision to punch it in the gut and make it harder for that type of family formation, and we're going to lose prosperity, and we're going to lose purpose.
Most people don't realize this, but societal cohesion and economics are very closely interlinked. A healthy growing economy means that the standards of living go up. Jobs are stable, wages are increasing, and inflation is low. People can afford more, feel happier, and are more likely to build relationships. A faltering economy is exactly the opposite. Today, due to rising inflation, stagnant wages, and debt burdens, people have to work longer and harder. Sometimes we may even need to juggle multiple jobs just to keep up. It's a frustrating state of affairs, but if you're wondering...
He's completely right. How many of you guys make over $50 an hour at your job? Me? A lot of people. How many of you guys make under 12? That's a lot of people too. My understanding is that the disparity between the wealthiest and the, like, there is like a poll it. I don't think really the poll matters, right? All I'm saying is that I think that there is a growing disparity between people that are like really rich and people that are really poor. Like back in the day, like growing up, how many of you guys got the same education about like the Gilded Age, about how inequality was like at an all-time high and there were super poor people and super rich people? You guys all got that education, right? The huge disparity. Yeah, Great Gatsby, all of that. I bet they don't teach that anymore now, because now it's infinitely worse than it was then. So like the shock factor of how bad it used to be isn't there anymore, because it's like, yeah, of course I know what it's like. It's worse now.
Why the world is like this. I fully explained it in my episode, How the 2008 Crisis Still Affects You. In that episode, I described how the true economy died in 2008 and has been on life support ever since. Because of horrendous government policies and reckless behavior from the financial sector, people have been struggling to make ends meet. Slowly at first, only to be accelerated by the pandemic. Today, it's a constant fight.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't have enough, like, I don't have enough information to, like, really comment on that. I really just don't understand that well enough. But I have to watch the video and be more educated on it. But I do think that, like, for example, I'm 33. And so whenever I was, like, early 20s, like, that was whenever 2000, like, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, right? These were, like, very, very, very bad years. And, like, how many of you guys are, like, right around my age, and, like, you remember how fucking hard it was to get a job? And I think that, like, this is a paradigm shift that I noticed on the radio, is that I remember back in the day, Indeed and these other job websites were advertising to people looking for jobs. They would say, we can get you a job. Nowadays, I hear the same radio station and the same ad for the same company, and now they're saying, we can get you employees. That is a tremendous fucking difference, and it's a total paradigm shift. Because back then, holy fuck, like, it was impossible to get a job. Like, I couldn't get a job at Walmart. It was so bad, and you were competing against people that were like 43. And it's like, this person has 20 years of experience. I can't possibly beat this person. Like, why would they ever hire me over them? Now, obviously, I should have tried harder. I could have gotten a job, and I probably could have if I had put in more work. And it's always, at the end of the day, your responsibility to take care of yourself. But, man, it was harder to do that with less effort than it is now. Or than it was in 2005, let's say. Millennials actually had the worst entrance into the workforce, especially the ones that are around my age.
To stay in the disappearing middle class. All across the world, an increasing number of people are taking up second jobs. Most young people are working, but still can't afford to rent or buy a home.
People are taking up second jobs, and also people are making like secondary money. Like I read like some sort of fucking statistic that I'm trying to remember like what exactly it was, but it was like some like multiple like number figure of like girls that were between like the ages of like 18 and 25 or something like that had OnlyFans. Like, I'm trying to remember like what the percentage was or anything like that. I don't remember what it was, but it was like a shockingly high percentage of them that had it. And it's like, think about the amount of guys that are doing 3% in USA. Was that it? 3%? That's fucking insane. Think about that. 3%? That's huge. As self-employed women. Yeah, that's fucking massive. So does your ex, bro. Yeah, and probably the next girl I'll date might do it too. I've got no problem with it. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. You're totally missing my point. Like, it's not about whether I agree with it or not. It's about whether I'm saying that this is, like, people, the reason why a lot of these girls do OnlyFans is because it makes more money than they could make from a job. Straight up. Is it though? It's not the point. I don't want to argue about this, like whether it's right or not. This is a moral argument. It's boring to me. My point is that this is happening. And also, like, just because of girls, right? I used an extreme example. How many guys do you know that tried to start streaming or making YouTube videos to like make extra money? A lot of people. Zero? Well, for me, I know a good number of people that have tried to do that. And also a shitload. Also, what is the most wanted job for kids nowadays? Well, it's being a content creator or being something like that. It's because people also, I think nowadays, value autonomy more than they used to. Yeah, YouTuber, streamer, influencer. Yeah, in China, it's astronaut or doctor. I'm sure that'll work out great. But anyway, yeah, it's a huge factor.
Too expensive to go out. In all of that, where is the time?
Yeah, I used to never be able to go out. Like, my idea of going out would be me and Zach driving to Jack in the Box and buying a drink for $1 because they were on sale during the summer. And then we would drive back to the house and play World of Warcraft for 8 hours. That was my idea of a good time. The local Taco Bell, yep. Good times? It was great.
Money or energy for socializing. This impacts how lonely we feel.
Yeah, I think also people, you're definitely right. Like, a lot of people don't have the, like, they get more socially drained from jobs now. Because I feel like more and more jobs, and I don't know if this is because of, like, you know, what I do, but, like, a lot of people, even that aren't actual streamers or YouTube content creators, they're, like, always on call in one form or another. Like, they're always keeping up with their job. They're always, you know, keeping up with trends related to their job. And so, like, the amount of time that you're at work might be 40 hours a week, but the amount of time that your mind is at work is, like, maybe 60 or 70. So, like, that mental exhaustion makes people not want to socialize as much because they're fucking tired.
It's not just some pie-in-the-sky idea. To give you a data-driven picture of how influential economics can be to feelings of loneliness, a study with
Somebody says that's every job. I disagree with you. I don't think that it is. I think that more tech jobs and jobs that have to do with, it's really simple, right? Like jobs where you're working internationally and jobs where you're working, like in on a countrywide level, like in the US, for example, because there's like a 3 or 4 hour differential between, like, you know, the latest time and the earliest time in the US, and like Pacific time versus like whatever fucking Eastern time is. You're just working more because you're interacting with people around the clock.
100,000 UK participants found something
It definitely
shocking.
is on a spectrum.
If you measure the amount of loneliness felt in the aftermath of the death of a spouse and divided that by 4, that's the same amount of loneliness as going from earning over £100,000 down to under $18,000. The researchers also stated that losing this much income is half the loneliness felt from a divorce. The measures of loneliness were quantified by a range of survey questions. It's not directly intuitive, but
I don't really put a lot of stock into I don't put a lot of stock into like those questionnaires. I think it's a good thought experiment, but I think that once you start reducing things like that into like numbers and percentages, I think that's whenever you get lost in the sauce.
Being in a desperate economic situation directly increases feelings of loneliness. So now that we know some of the causes, in all society, who is the most affected? Statistically, it is not the elderly
it's
anymore.
Young guys.
Now, it's the young.
Yep, young guys.
If you do a search for I have no friends on YouTube, the results are filled with experiences of young people feeling lonely. They struggle to make real connections. These videos have thousands and even millions of views, which means that they must be resonating with people.
Well, there's also there's like a certain type of like Sigma grind set mentality that like some people try to push nowadays, that it's a good thing to not have any friends. And I think that I think that's very unhealthy. It is. It's a lie. Yeah, I think it is generally unhealthy to push that type of mindset.
And even millions of views, which means that they must be resonating with people.
When I got to my late 20s, and a lot of you can probably attest to this in the comments, let me know, but when I got to my late 20s, those friends disappeared. And it's not because they were like, I hate you, Cody. It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
Everybody my age seems the same. That just seems how it is nowadays.
And
it's hard to say. Like, I'm the kind of guy, it's like if I haven't seen somebody in 5 years, I see him again, it's like I saw him yesterday. It's totally fine with me. It's whatever. But I think also, like, I can only really see something like this from my perspective. And I can see definitely why he would feel that way. No one can really talk for everyone, though. Exactly. That's what I'm saying, right? It's like I'm just expressing how I would think about that and how I feel about that, but I'm not saying that I'm right, he's wrong. I don't think it's an element of that at all.
Sitting alone in my apartment at my desk staring at my computer.
Yeah.
Because I don't have any friends. I don't know how to make friends and I'm scared. I just want to run into somebody. I hate meeting people online. It's so awkward. And you put all this into a conversation, but when you meet someone, you don't have that kind. I feel like I need to meet people. I need to meet people, but I don't know how, and I don't think it's possible as an adult to just run into people.
Jesus.
Have you ever had friends that...
God fucking damn. Yeah, that is sad, man. Holy fuck. Like, yeah, like, what the fuck? That's, like, for me, I never, honestly, like, guys might not believe this, I never have had a problem making friends. Like, growing up, like, I've always had tons of friends. Like, I even go somewhere now, and, like, people, like, it has nothing to do with my stream. Like, I'll just talk to somebody about, some bullshit, right? And, yeah, I don't really have that problem. I don't know, that's popular. Yeah, it's just I don't think it's that at all. I just never really had a problem making friends or getting along with people. I think the reason why is that growing up, I grew up in a very like multicultural like neighborhood and like place. And because of that, I got really used to finding ways to get along with people and finding ways to relate to people. Whereas I think that for other people, they found, like, it's like I try to figure out what fits together rather than what sets me apart whenever I'm interacting with another person.
secretly hate you. I had a lot of them in my life, which is why I am 30 years old and I have no friends.
Oh boy.
There's also a subreddit called r/lonely. It's ranked in the top 1%.
Being an ugly girl is terrible. Of course it is. Yeah. I mean, obviously. I'll be right back when I use the bathroom. Do you have any social anxiety at all? Yeah, I usually don't. I don't know if it's really social anxiety. I mean, like I would get, like, I've gotten stressed out giving a speech before, like in like school for college, for example. I had to give speech in front of like an auditorium, and I was like, fuck, I'm a little bit stressed out about this. But like, yeah, I mean, a little bit of social anxiety. Yeah, I get socially anxious, but it's also like, I don't know if it's really social anxiety as much as it's just social dread. Like, I don't want to do this, and now I'm having to do the thing that I don't want to do. Is that anxiety? I don't think so. It's a little bit different, right? Yeah, it's a mood. Yeah, getting forced to do it. Exactly. Yeah, it's the same thing. I don't think it is. I'm not sure if it is or not, though.
There's also a subreddit called r/lonely. It's ranked in the top 1% in terms of community size. There's thousands of active users discussing their isolation, lack of friends, and life partners. In previous years, younger people weren't considered a lonely demographic. But in 2015, the BBC's Loneliness Project surveyed over 50,000 people and found that the rates of loneliness in young people were similar to that of elderly people. Here's a chart looking at the loneliness distribution between 2014 and 2018. The dotted line represents the 2018 data. As you can see, the rates of loneliness among the young are trending higher, whereas the elderly seem to be dropping.
That's good.
Fast forward to 2021, and a Harvard Graduate School of Education survey found that 61% of young people ages 18 to 25 reported experiencing profound loneliness, including feeling lonely all the time. And this was...
See, like, yeah, whenever I was like 18 to 25, I used to sleep in a bed with 5 other dudes on like a weekly basis. Like, my house was like the house that everybody would go to and like we would chill at. Like, after we would go out or do anything, it's like everybody would come back to my house. So like, I always had a lot of people around me. Like, I used to actually have like this window right here. I didn't have curtains on my window. So, because like, I don't like people fucking bothering me whenever I first wake up, right? And so I took the curtains down. I said, there's no curtains on the window. So if you wake up here and you're going to wake up at 7 in the morning, I'm going to wake up at like noon, 1, 2 p.m. Like, you're going to have to sit there in that fucking bright sun. And also the room used to be hot as fuck. So people would leave before I woke up. So I could get up in the morning and just chill and not have anybody there bothering me. You ever get in fights for whose turn it was on Halo? Well, nah, because it was my game, so I would always be playing, and I would always beat people, right? Because, like, usually it's like you would get swapped off if you lost. Hot room with a lot of guys? It was. Yeah.
Compared to only 36% among other age groups. In 2022, 30% of young people aged 16 to 24 in the UK say that they don't know how to make new friends and have never felt more alone. To add to the situation, for some reason, it seems that men are feeling more lonely than women.
Yep.
According to the Survey Center on American Life...
It's because they don't have a girlfriend, that's why. That's the reason why everybody knows it. Because they don't have fucking girlfriend, they can't get a girlfriend, they have low self-esteem, they don't have, a 6-figure salary, so no girl will talk to them. And that's just it, right? Girlfriend in this economy, sheesh. Yeah, no, it's not even that, right? It's the it's the perception. The perception is what's worse than everything. Yeah, they're 5'7". So like, I mean, they might as well just die, right? I mean, that's just how, because if you're 5'7", like, no guys that are 5'7" ever get married. They never have kids. It just doesn't happen. So like, just give up. There it is. Yeah, you've already lost.
55% of men had at least 6 close friends in 1990.
Just it, guys.
But this figure has decreased to 27% today.
Yeah, but the girlfriend
Alarmingly,
figure.
the number of men without...
I told y'all this before, but like my dad, so this is like 4 days ago, something like that, right? He calls me in the morning, and I'm like, oh, fuck, what is this shit? He calls me. He's like, Zach. I'm like, yep. He's like, you know that stuff that you were telling me about incels? And about how, like all this stuff and incels and all this. I said, yeah, Yeah, I heard about it. He's like, well, I read an article on the newspaper and I think I figured it out. I said, oh yeah, what is it? He said, in this article, it said that a lot of teenagers nowadays don't have girlfriends. And I bet that's why they're incels. I said, I think that's it. And I'm like, you know what? You are exactly fucking right. Yep. There it fucking is. Figured it out? Yep. He's like, yeah, I think that's where it's coming from.
Any close friends has increased 5 times since 1990, while women are getting much lonelier too. This highlights a significant loss in meaningful connections among the male population.
And also, I think like another factor is that, you know, also like about my dad. Like my dad growing up had tons of friends too. Like, you know, the only reason why he's not hanging out with more of his friends now is because they're dead. Other than that, he'd be hanging out with them, doing shit with them all the time. Like growing up, he was always doing stuff with them, and like, you know, having like that model of like how to interact with another person, I think that helps too.
Meanwhile, those with literally 0 close friends, which stood at 3% in 1990, has zoomed to 15%.
Holy shit.
An expert quoted by The Hill said this disconnect can have catastrophic consequences for young men.
Failing young men,
I think I watched this,
does not end well. This is an existential crisis.
Well,
failing young men.
I'd argue it's much more than 15% since 2021. Yeah, maybe. But percent of what number is what I'm saying? Well, I mean, like, you really think the amount of young men has really changed that much? I don't think so. And also, if you take a slice of an apple pie, it's still an apple pie, isn't it?
Loneliness has spread across the globe. Australian researchers conducted a systematic review and meta-analysis of 57 studies from across 113 countries or territories.
Pie analogy,
the study
again?
discovered that despite the differences in prevalence between regions and ages, loneliness was found to be present across all regions.
A substantial difference in data coverage between high-income countries, particularly Europe, and low-middle-income countries, raised an important equity issue. Evidence on the temporal trends of loneliness is insufficient. Findings of this meta-analysis are limited by data scarcity. Loneliness should be incorporated into general health surveillance. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, like, yeah, I'm curious, like, what's it like in just a random, like, second world country, right? No answer? Yeah.
Loneliness was found to be present across all regions. According to a Statista study...
I think also another reason why it happens is that, like, political isolation, or not political isolation, escalation. Like, nowadays, people think, like, if you're a, you know, like, really, like, hardcore conservative... There are a lot of conservatives that think that, you know, like liberals and Democrats are all groomers or groomer enablers, that they want to like teach kids about sex at 5 years old. And like the people are so dramatically radicalized. And like if you're a liberal, you think like conservatives are, you know, these like Nazis. They hate black people. They hate women. They want to turn, you know, a woman's life into The Handmaid's Tale. They want to bring slavery back. And like, you know, they want to take Martin Luther King out of the books. Like people, like the emotional escalation of like different types of, you know, like differences in thought between people is like right now it's higher than at least I've ever seen it. It's crazy how bad it is now. Like you guys have seen a lot of posts and stuff like that about people talking about how, oh, I can't date somebody who has this type of political opinion, or I can't even be friends with these people because they think this thing. Like think about, for example, here's another example, is that on social media, how many people get criticized for being friends or having an interaction with a person who's seen to have disagreeable political viewpoints. Whether those viewpoints are you think justified or not, like, I think it's way more common nowadays. Not my crew. Oh, I think that, like, for me and my friends, it's not the case either. Yeah, you're totally right. But I'm thinking on, like, a macro level. Like, beyond that, I see a lot of this. Yeah, guilt by association.
In late 2022, 33% of adults worldwide report feeling lonely at least sometimes.
Yeah.
Brazil, India, and Saudi Arabia rank as some of the loneliest countries, whereas Germany, the Netherlands, and Russia report some of the lowest rates.
Huh.
If we want to get granular,
that's interesting.
We can see the effects of COVID via the proxy search term, feeling lonely. It's not a perfect analogue, but it gives you an idea. The popularity of the people searching the term dramatically spiked in late 2021 and early 20.
Wow. I would probably cross-reference this with like 3 or 4 other terms, just in case feeling lonely was a search term that people were using for something that was separate. But man, yeah, like maybe a song or something like that, right? But holy fuck, that's crazy.
2022. This is most likely due to the effects of the pandemic. Of course, the government responses to the pandemic have had long-lasting implications. Many people moved away for work or just for a change. This shuffling on such a massive scale caused a lot of disruption to the connections within society. In Japan, the issue is especially severe. In 1990,
says correlation does not prove causation. People being separated from each other doesn't cause them to become lonely? Huh. I think that saying correlation doesn't prove causation only makes sense whenever things aren't correlated, or they're being correlated in a dishonest way. Like, I understand, like, this is like a... Only for extroverts? Yeah, exactly. That literally does. I think you just want to sound smart. Yeah, most people that say stuff like that just try to say it to sound smart. You're right. Professional contrarians, yeah.
2021, their central bank popped a stock market and real estate bubble by raising interest rates.
Yeah.
The economy stagnated so hard that the period that followed is simply known as the lost decades. A lot of young Japanese people today aren't dating, and a large number don't have any friends.
Ooh.
Some live their lives as shut-ins.
Yeah, they even have like a word for it, the hikikomori.
Known as hikikomori.
Yeah, there you go.
They can sit in their room for months, and sometimes years, only venturing out to eat and use the toilet.
And in the bedrooms of homes across Japan, more than 1 million people have retreated altogether. Hidehiro Shinmasu is one.
There it is.
His bedroom has been his universe for the best part of 20 years. He's now 40 years old.
シンマスさん、お部屋で何をしますか？
読書をしたり、あと YouTube 見たり、パソコンで YouTube 見たり。はい。同調圧力が強かったり、同質性が強かったりして、人と違った行動を取る人だったり、人と違う生き方に対してあまり寛容ではないので。
Were you able to go out? What was daily life like?
絶望感っていうか。
Jesus.
何にもできなかったので。それまでは頑張れたんですけど、同じように頑張ろうと思って頑張れなくなったので、で、その卒業のする見込みの方が、その時が一番絶望感というか。
He wants to feel accepted.
Are you comfortable with this life?
やっぱり
See, that's the thing, is like some people are like this. Like there's always stories of like some guy that's like, yeah, you know, he was working and then one day he decided that he was going to go live out in the woods. And so he went out and he lived out in the woods with squirrels and shit for the rest of his life, and he was happy. Right? Like it happens. It does happen. But he was happy. That's the difference. I think a lot of people feel like they have to do this.
今40歳なので、そういった意味でなんか
Turn into Ted? Yeah.
あんまり社会に合わないからいいんだっていうことではなくて、やっぱある程度社会が実際にもうちょっと歩み寄ってもらって、その引きこもり状態である方でも、だから僕でも働けるようなメニューを増やしてもらいたいっていうのが一番の願いで、今の活動もそういうような活動をしています。
There's an estimated
That's a nice
1.5 million hikikomori in Japan. It seems like an emerging trend in East Asia. In China, they are called the hidden youth, and in South
Ah, fuck. Yep, there it is. And I think also, like, this is it's a reason why one of the reasons why you're able to do this is because you can just find entertainment online and you don't have to go out as much.
Korea, they are known simply as socially withdrawn youth.
Ooh.
As for the Japanese, to cope with the loneliness epidemic, they've tried to innovate their way out of the situation. They have the unique concept of renting relationships. Yes, that's right. You can pay for temporary companionship and emotional support.
Yeah, they do this a lot in Japan. This is, they're ahead of the curve with this. Yeah, buying girlfriend isn't like that's not a RuneScape meme over there. That's just how it is.
Hire people to
It's crazy. Like, I didn't know how normalized stuff like that over there was until like the last 6 months to a year.
Your friends, family members, or even pose as your girlfriend or boyfriend.
Yeah.
At least in Japan, lonely people are resorting to real-life people, albeit strangers, to ease their loneliness.
Damn.
But in the West, the market is using the new AI boom to target lonely people in stranger and more bizarre ways.
That's right.
For example, Karen Marjorie is a social media influencer with nearly 2 million followers on Snapchat.
Mhm.
She created her own AI chatbot called Karen AI. It can replicate her voice, personality, and appearance, and all it costs for users is $1 a minute.
Platforms.
That's a lot.
Are you real?
Yes, Jacob, I'm a real person. I might not be sitting right next to you, but I'm using this audio chat platform to connect with you in real time. I'm a young, curvy woman with a petite body, brown hair.
That's why it's expensive. Like, I think that we really need to call this what it is. This is just, it's sex chat. Like, what do you think the percentage of people who are consuming this content are doing it for a sexual reason? I would say like 95%. Like, this is not about loneliness. It's about fucking ERP.
Perky breasts, soft skin, and full lips. And I'm here to talk and have fun with you.
Also, people declaring that solving loneliness with
I
technology.
love how this guy has to pretend like he's offended by it. He has to pretend like, oh no, I don't like that, because his wife might be watching, right? And like, if she sees that and he's like, oh, all right, like, then he's gonna fucking, he's not gonna have a good time. Yeah, he's gotta pretend, man.
And I'm here to talk and have fun with you.
Also, people declaring that solving loneliness with technology is the new market.
I'm enjoying her hustle.
It is.
I'm enjoying her hustle. You know she makes $5 million a month doing this stuff?
John, I'm so tired of my financial situation. Yes, I would do it. 100%.
I would encourage her to think twice. I think younger people
an estimated $5 million a month,
or give away their likeness and their
she
job.
can buy an island and go think twice about it in her home.
Interesting. I would not have expected that.
Why? It's not me.
The large influx of messages she receives from her.
Making money from losers is really popular. And the reason why is because, like, if you, like, these are one of the most profitable groups of people to make money from is young guys that are isolated. Because some of them are just like losers, but other ones are software developers. And they've got a lot of fucking money.
98% male audience. And this isn't just text-based interaction. It seems that it's predominantly audio-based on the AI's end. Let's check out a demo.
Hey there, John. It's lovely to meet you. I just spent the morning grabbing brunch at the Flowering Tree Cafe in West Hollywood. It was absolutely amazing. For this evening, maybe we can plan a virtual dinner date or watch a movie together. What do you think?
This chatbot allows Karen to converse
I have
with
over 20,000 boyfriends now. Wow. She's our girlfriend now. Isn't that nice?
an unlimited number of people at one time, whether the consumer wants to do so.
Karen and I has been running for roughly 2 weeks now. I can confidently say that my core community spends multiple hours chatting with Karen AI on a daily basis. Yeah, there's a lot of girls that are doing this now. It's so depressing. Yeah, no, this is the way it is, guys. What's your body count? Yeah. Oh, God.
For a few minutes or all day, doesn't matter as long as they pay $1 per minute to maintain access.
Yeah, there
Meta
you go.
has just released an interactive AI version of celebrities such as Mr. Beast, Kendall Jenner, and Snoop Dogg. We've covered AI companions before, but the future may be filled with clones of celebrities, influencers, or even deceased relatives. They claim...
That's real good, yeah. Digital necromancers. Oh, boy. You know, by the way, I watched a video about this. I think Replica originally came from like a woman who was trying to create a digital simulacrum of a person that like died in her life. Yeah, it's her friend or something like that. Yeah, that's where Replica actually came from.
That these products help people to cope with grief, loneliness, or boredom. There's an ethical debate to be had on if this help provided is actually a net positive. Should we be at this point in the first place?
I think the problem is that people feel like they have to choose these things. I don't think the problem is the fact that they exist. Because weird stuff like this has always existed in some form or another, but the fact that people are resorting to it is a problem. I think that like it's not a disease, it's just simply a symptom.
US health authorities are calling for social isolation.
Yeah, if you get rid of this, it won't solve any problems.
To be treated as seriously as obesity or drug abuse. Nearly 50% of all Americans are thought to be affected or have been affected at some point. Around the world, the figures may vary, but the loneliness phenomena is spreading. In his writing, Together, The Healing Power of Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World, Dr. Murthy describes loneliness as a health risk that can impact anyone, regardless of age, gender, culture, or background.
Loneliness increases the risk for heart disease, stroke, and among older adults, dementia.
It can harm mental and physical health, as well as social well-being, and increase the risk of an early death due to diseases such as diabetes, heart attacks, insomnia, and dementia. Studies have...
Well, I don't understand that. Like, how is it going to give you a higher chance of diabetes? Like, I'm not the Surgeon General, okay? But, like, that certainly doesn't make sense to me. Stress is because of diabetes. Sorry, stress causes diabetes? Is that true? Wow, I had no idea.
Have linked loneliness to higher blood pressure, high cholesterol, lower levels of physical activity, cognitive impairment, and mental health issues like anxiety, stress, mood disorders, and depression. A study by Florida State University found that lonely older adults had a 40% higher risk of developing dementia over the next 10 years.
I think that kind of makes sense, right? Like, this is the one that, like, I could easily see making sense. I think that most things in life work kind of like muscles, where, like, if you don't use it, you lose it. So, like, if you're not actively, like, using your brain, then you're gonna lose your fucking brain. All right, that's what makes sense. Like, I know that, for example, you know, like, my mom, like, she was always like, yeah, she get a little bit like, what the fuck are you talking about, right? But, like, she would always do that. But, like, she was always super fucking sharp. And the reason why is because she was on the internet reading shit, thinking about stuff, like fucking processing this, watching videos. You know, she had like 300 tabs open. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, she had more tabs open than I did. And she was like just thinking constantly.
Lack of social connection can also negatively impact academic and professional performance.
Yeah.
In his TED Talk and book...
And also, lack of sleep, I think, increases the risk of dementia as well. Again, I'm not the Surgeon General, but this is just my understanding.
Lost connections. Journalist and author Johann Hari argues that depression is largely a social problem, not just a chemical one. He believes that loneliness is a major cause of depression. Humans need to belong to a group, but our modern society lacks this. Since the 1970s, society has been focused ever more on individualism, competition, and technology.
Yep.
So this all sounds terrible. So what can we do about it? How do we fix this?
Walking clubs are taking off, and it's not just the exercise.
You're connecting with someone, which is something that I was kind of missing.
That's nice.
More and more people are missing that connection.
In 2018, the UK appointed a minister for loneliness, and there has been talks in other countries to follow suit. This could be a start. Governments can do more to help. Initiatives such as local community engagement meetings, improvements in access to mental health resources, education and public awareness on how to identify loneliness and combat loneliness, as well as development and investment in affordable housing. It's shown that housing stability impacts social connections. City planners can implement communal areas for people to gather.
Well, this is another thing, right? Is like a lot of people live like, for example, like I have friends that live out in the middle of fucking nowhere. So like whenever you're a kid, like I live in a suburban neighborhood, right? So like whenever I would go outside, the first thing I would see is I would see Cameron's house, right? And then I would look up the street and I'd be seeing Zach and Lowell's house. And then I look down the street, I'd see Cody and Jeff. And then everybody'd be there, right? And so like if I wanted to interact with them and I wanted to chill with them, then it was easy, right? It's no big deal. But like, you literally just walk across the street. But like if you've got some house out in the middle of fucking nowhere, like I was thinking for myself, right? It's like, I was talking with like a girl or like, oh, maybe we're going to move in together, maybe start a family and all this. And I said like, listen, I don't want to move out in some random ass fucking place in the middle of nowhere. Because like, I know how good it was for me as a kid growing up, like to be around a bunch of other people and like to grow up with like my neighborhood and like all my friends. And it's like, I would want that to fucking happen for a kid of mine. Absolutely. Like, I would never, like, it doesn't matter how nice the house is. Who gives a fuck about the house? It's a fucking house. That's just a place where you put your shit.
Example of this is in Barcelona, Spain.
The American mind cannot comprehend what's going on around me. This isn't a party. It's not even a planned event. It's just what happens every afternoon here in Barcelona, Spain. After school and work, people come out to squares like this to hang out, get work done while their kids play with friends, socialize, interact with acquaintances or true friends and neighbors, and there's a huge social and economic benefit to that. Now, the square I was at is right here behind me, but just a block away through that passageway is another square.
I think that there is like a legitimate economic benefit too, because people feel like they have a shared responsibility.
Now, in America, we have a loneliness epidemic, and part of it is due to our built environment. You see, these public squares are examples.
I think there's also, like, I don't know how Spain is, but, like, actually, I'm not even really sure, right? Because I was going to say, like, America is less homogenous than Spain, but Japan is more homogenous than anywhere else in the world. And, like, they have this problem. So, like, maybe homogeny, like, looking the same, everybody being, like, the same race, the same, like, culture, etc. Maybe that's not as much of a factor. But, like, I don't know. Maybe it is. It's hard to say. It's culture? Yeah. Because, like, one thing about America is that Florida and Portland are really different countries. They're really very different places. Fuck. Austin and, I would say, just like a random place in Texas are different countries.
What some people call third places. They're not work, your first place. They're not home, your second place, but they're a third place where you interact with acquaintances and friends. In America, these third places are dwindling as religion and church.
Church is another one. Like, I used to go to church growing up.
is having less a significant impact in Americans' lives. But also third places are disappearing because of zoning laws, which keep separating the different types of activity that you have in a city to the point of every activity has to be intentionally planned. And what third places we do have in America, things like coffee shops or bars and cafes, they're paid third places that just aren't very accessible for people who are poor, at least on a regular basis. Now, why does it happen here in Spain? Well, of course, there's a culture for it, but more than that, there's an environment that's conducive to it.
Huh. But what about the individual person? Saying, go make a friend, or man up, isn't exactly helpful. Loneliness is not something to be ashamed of or ignored. You wouldn't be ashamed to get help for a broken arm. So if your soul is injured, you should reach out. Here are 6 ways that one can combat loneliness. Number 1, reach out. This could include professional...
Well, we know this one's not going to fucking happen because most of the people that are lonely are anxious about being social. Like, this is probably the one that's going to be the least likely to happen. I'm going to be honest. That one's like, yeah, it's like, oh, fuck. That's the one thing I don't want to do. They're not going to reach out. They're going to roach out. Yeah.
Help or expressing how you feel to your friends or family. You can just start small.
Yeah.
You could also find local groups, organizations, and services that can help you connect with others. Reach out to a mental health professional, like a therapist or counselor. They can provide you with guidance and support to address the underlying causes of loneliness. Number 2, self-acceptance.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money, right, to go to, like, a therapist. I don't know how much it is to go to a therapist, but it's probably, like, what, $50, $100 an hour? Something like that. Maybe 150 on average, right? Extremes exist, but...
This seems counterintuitive, but another solution is to cultivate a connection with oneself.
Yeah,
it's a practice to remind us that we do indeed have self-worth. A 2022 study showed that self-reflection can reduce feelings of loneliness and also contribute to finding meaning in life. Reflecting on who you are, practicing self-compassion, and writing down how you're feeling can be a great start. Number 3.
See, I guess that's always kind of like what I did, right? Is like I would always make videos. Even whenever I was a little kid, I would make videos and draw comics. Like I would always find like different ways to like express myself. Like, dude, like I have like 50, like I'm not even kidding you guys. I have like probably like 50 hours of just like vlogs that I did growing up that I just never put on the internet. I would just record it and like, okay, there it is.
Gratitude. A lot of things around us tell us that we're not enough. It's how a lot of companies make their money.
That's true.
The advertising tells us we're not rich enough or pretty enough, or that if we just buy this one...
I see this a lot with people, like they like this is especially true like for me because like I'm not a big money spender. So like anytime that like I like this TV that I have behind me right here, this motherfucker, this is a 50-inch TV that I bought. It's an LED TV. It's a great TV. I bought it at Sam's Club. I went there with my mom and my friend Austin, and I bought that TV with my first check from the IRS. I have never replaced that TV, and it's not getting replaced until maybe somehow I move or it dies. It's a good TV. Could I buy an 85-inch TV? Sure. But why would I do that if I already have a TV? And it's people always feeling like they need something like... I think it's like a matter of perspective, is I try to look at myself as a, fully completed puzzle. I try not to think of myself like, okay, well, I'm missing 7 different pieces. One of them's a new car. The other one's a TV. Another one is the approval of a group of people on the internet. Like, this is not a good idea.
More thing, we'll be happy. We can combat this by being grateful in what we do have. The practice of gratitude. I know it sounds trite, but the simple practice of gratitude can do wonders. A 2021 study showed that increased gratitude can reduce feelings of loneliness. A 2015 study, 2011 study, and 2010 study all showed the same thing.
Yeah.
For just 5 minutes a day, really think about what you can be thankful for. At first, it may seem like there's nothing to be thankful for. But if you're not forced to fight in a war, have a roof over your head, and are in decent physical health, have food, and have water, that's better than some people. We should be thankful for that and much more. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that where you are right now is hard, really, really hard. But incorporating the practice of gratitude alongside other support can strongly aid in your journey.
Yeah.
For example, Studies prove that gratitude can increase.
Like I was talking to my dad about this, and I was like, I get so exhausted and tired of being the person that people come to solve their problems. Like I have all my shit in order. Everything is going great for me. I don't have any problems. And there are other people that bring their problems to me that have a problem, and now it's like, you know, their life is on the line in some way. It's like a crucial issue and they need me to help them. Right? And it's like, oh fuck, right? I've got to figure out what to do now. And so I told him, I was like, listen, the only thing worse than that is being the person that has to ask for help. You know, I try not to forget that. Is like, yeah, it might be annoying for sure, but like, goddamn, am I lucky to be the person that's able to help them? Yeah, if it was the other way around. That doesn't make it any less fucking annoying, by the way. It's just important to keep things into perspective.
Happiness, reduce depression, and strengthen resiliency.
Trauma dumping.
People often experience reduced blood pressure,
yeah,
less chronic pain, increased energy, even longer lives. People who purposefully express more gratitude report higher self-esteem than those who don't. And they're more likely to help others.
Also, like, you know, you look at gratitude, you know, saying grace, right? At, you know, whenever you're about to eat dinner. It's like, that's again, like another way that like kind of religion is like, you know, like tangentially related with this.
Social behavior also,
and I do think like the decline of religion is like a huge factor of why people are feeling more lonely. I think that it's fucking huge, because like almost every single place in the world has a religion, and I think the reason why every place in the world has a religion is because there is some sort of like fucking, like, you know how like there's certain things that, like, you know, for example, like a baby will like curl their toes. To like in every single human being does this thing. Like I think that's kind of the same thing with religion. Yeah, core memory, like core, like shared consciousness.
Greater happiness. People who capture grateful thoughts before bed sleep better than those who don't.
Jesus is a boomer's anime
Why
girl?
So many positive changes? Because gratitude actually rewires our brains, kickstarting the production of dopamine and serotonin.
Oh, God.
Like antidepressants, these feel-good neurotransmitters activate the bliss center of the brain, creating feelings of happiness and contentment. This appears to be self-perpetuating. Research suggests that with regular practice, you'll train your prefrontal cortex to better appreciate and retain positive experiences and thoughts, and to deflect the negative ones.
Number 4. Social media reduction.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense, right? If you're already happy and things are going good for you, it's like the matter of like, you know, as I was saying, right? People always coming to you to like, you know, ask you for help for stuff. It's like, it's a matter of perspective. I think almost everything, if you change your perspective on it, it can at least be improved. It's not going to be better, but it's not going to fix it, but it'll be improved.
When it comes to using social media, we need to use it in moderation. There's research that says that a small amount of social media is beneficial, but a large amount is detrimental.
Like with most
30 minutes of use a day is the advice from Dr. Jeremy Noble. He cited a University of Pennsylvania study. Cutting back on social media can significantly improve your well-being. Dr. Noble also advises to choose social media platforms that help us develop authentic social connections. Number 5.
I think social media is like one of the things where it's like you have some people that get in on it, and like for me, I like being able to go on Facebook and see what friends of mine that I grew up with are doing now. Because like they live maybe in a different state, or, you know, their lives are totally different. I don't get a chance to see them anymore. And so it's like I see them with like, you know, they have a family now, and, you know, they have a picture together, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember this dude. We used to throw rocks at people in high school, and like, you know, now he's got like 2 kids and a wife, and he's trying to pretend like he's not the shithead that, you know, we used to be. And, you know, like I get a lot out of that. I think that's a great thing. But there's a lot of other people that, you know, whenever they get on social media, they only get mad. Like, I'll read people's, like, so, like, obviously I get a lot of people, like, adding me, like, oh, I fucking hate you, like, kill yourself, like, I hate your content, like, you're so stupid, right? People tell me this, like, every day. And so sometimes I'll, like, read their profile just because I'm curious, right? And so I'll read their profile and, like, I'll look at the tweets, and, like, every single tweet and every message that they ever do is something negative. Like, this is just, like, a fundamentally unhappy, negative person. And it's just so sad. It's so sad that they're doing that. Like, they're literally ruining their own life. You know, you go fishing for one of those people? Oh, who cares, right? I mean, there's plenty of hate watchers in chat. Maybe not right now, but, like, just in general.
Giving to others shows us that we have something to offer to the world. Ironically, this can help us feel less lonely. Local community volunteering, or just helping a work colleague or neighbor in small ways. According to Vivek Murphy, the man who first declared the loneliness pandemic back in 2017, quote, "Service is one of the most under-recognized antidotes to loneliness. It reaffirms to ourselves that we have value to add to the world."
Yeah, I think that's
and
probably
lastly,
true.
number 6, connection.
Yeah, like, growing up, my dad would have me go and, like, we would volunteer and do, like, work to preserve, like, different natural, like, habitats. One in particular. Here, like, in Austin. And so we do that, like, you know, once a month or something like that.
Loneliness is a stress state that makes us focus on ourselves rather than outwards towards others. To keep safe, we often treat people and things with suspicion when we feel lonely. This can ruin self-esteem. We feel like we're not lovable or likable. These factors compound on each other.
Yeah, you ever had, like, a girlfriend, like, always overthinks everything and makes every situation that you're in with her some sort of, like, a problem? Like, there's, like, you never know, like, there's always something wrong. There's, like, always, like, some degree of, like, uncertainty or tension in their life. Oh, God. Never again, bro. Never again.
Making it hard to solve and creating a downward spiral. To break the cycle, one can start slowly. Even a quick hello to your neighbors can help inch connection forwards.
Yeah.
And lastly, if you are fortunate to have a healthy group of friends, try and schedule calls together, talk to each other, and just chat about life. There's an old Japanese...
See, like, that's the way it used to be, man. Is, like, you would get in Discord. Actually, back in the day, bro, like, I remember, like, a core memory of mine is, like, waking up on Saturday morning, and I left my, my game, like, I left, like, my computer on, like, as I always do, and I would have in my headphones, and I could hear my guildies talking and, like, laughing and like, having fun whenever I woke up, and, like, you know, because I had stayed in Vent the whole night, and, you know, I just fucking went to bed, left myself in the channel. I'm like, oh, man. Like, I'm about to, bro, we about to go in on this shit. We about to play this game 12 hours a day, man. Dude, that was, yeah. I remember I was like, yeah, getting ready. Like, fuck yeah, what's up, boys? How y'all doing? I just got up. Yeah.
Tradition from Okinawa called moe. It basically means lifelong group of friends. They meet weekly and talk about life, discuss issues, and help each other. Elders in Okinawa live extraordinarily better and longer lives than almost anyone anywhere else in the world. It's common to find moe groups that have been friends for over 90 years.
Holy
I've travelled to the Japanese archipelago of Okinawa, where there are more centenarians than anywhere else in the world.
There's people over 100.
お友達関係とても親しくして仲良くしてるから悩みあんまりない。
元気だろ、元気。友達は会うの。
She 100 fucking years old. God damn, that's old. Holy shit.
散歩行ってからよ。友達いるデイサービス。いっぱいいるさ、友達。おばあさんたちがいっぱいいる。カムロの話さえ。何年も話する？昔の話したら。
Bro, she's going in too. Oh my god.
病院の薬が一番楽しいのはみんなと一緒に会ってお話しして それからもう踊りを踊ったりしたら自分の健康になるような気がしますね。
Easy nomads, yeah. Yeah, I've always felt like whenever you get old and you start getting on like a bunch of medications, like you're starting a timer. You know? Like you're starting a timer, bro. Like that's the way I see it.
3つぐらい空いてますよ。一番古いのだったらもう50年ぐらい続いてないから。お友達が集まってごやごや話し合いするのがとっても楽しみ。もうやめないですよ。みんながね元気じゃないと自分もね長いこと元気でも面白くないさね。
I don't try to live as long as possible. It happens naturally because we all gather, laugh and cry together. And that's what's good. That's what we say.
That's it. That's really the way of life in Okinawa.
Damn, that's crazy. What the fuck?
Keep in mind that these are general rules, and some may find it harder to make connections than others due to being non-neurotypical or due to other circumstances within their lives. Sometimes, people that you try to connect with can just be plain rude. But at the end of—
Well, people are fucking assholes sometimes. And like also like don't go tell yourself that you're neurodivergent just because you took a fucking questionnaire on Quora that told you that you're autistic. No, you're not. You're not fucking autistic. Like maybe you're just a little bit weird. Like just fucking stop like self-diagnosing yourself with mental disorders because you don't have a personality.
Of the day, there are many ways to combat loneliness. So the key is to realize—
Yeah, I took the Yahoo quiz and it says I'm a fucking schizo. So I guess I can't have any friends now.
How you're feeling and to find the best strategy for you alongside professional help. If you encounter someone showing symptoms of loneliness, don't ignore them. Reach out to people who might be lonely. Talk to them. If they need professional help, guide them in the right direction. It all comes down to how can you be of service to others? The gift of simply being there and truly listening can sometimes go a long way.
That's one factor a lot of people don't fucking understand is that if you want people to like you and you want people to be around you, listen to them and take an active interest in the things that they care about. And if you find like you're not able to care about the things that they care about, then you're maybe hanging out with the wrong people. Because like you'll be able to find people that you can interact with, you can talk to, you can listen to what they have to say, and it's not just fucking, oh my god, how long is this going to take? Yeah, that's the thing, is like take an active, enthusiastic interest in the things that people tell you, and they'll want to be around you. It sounds like such an obvious fucking thing, but so many people struggle with it. The other guy's not touching on the real issue that people have egos and they don't want to accept that they have a problem. Yeah, I think that's an issue too. You're right about that.
Go in with an open mind, don't be quick to judge, and try and practice understanding. Once we listen to others, they can be more open to listening to us.
Yeah.
Chronic loneliness is an unnatural condition, a state that we were not designed for. It leaves us empty and longing for connection and understanding. It's been slowly building since industrialization, accelerating in the 1960s and 70s.
I remember, for me, like I've always done like streaming and making videos. And I remember that like whenever I would like take a break from streaming, because you remember like back in the day, I used to take breaks from streaming like entirely. Like I wasn't on my second channel. I wasn't really making videos. I was just wearing the same shirt for a month straight without showering in my room doing nothing. Right? And I remember I would know that I was ready to come back and stream again whenever I would be talking in my car, whenever I was driving, and like doing mannerisms, like thinking out what I would say on a stream. And like whenever I was doing that by myself, I'm like, okay, it's time to come back. Schizo? Yeah. Damn, bro, you probably smell like hella shit. I bet I smell better than you do. You greasy pig. What are you talking about? I don't sweat. I'm not dirty.
Before exploding in the 21st century, it crept in and snuck up on us. And only with the proliferation of smartphones and COVID did it get
All I'm saying is that I think that people choose to be lonely. The problem is that people take the path of least resistance, and the path of least resistance is oftentimes what leads to loneliness.
severe that it could
People
no
have
longer
chosen
be
this in a
ignored.
lot of cases.
Only now are we starting to see and do we care about the impact of loneliness. Before it gets out of hand, we need to tackle the situation. Of course, you can't alleviate everyone's loneliness, as each person longs for different types and different depths of connection. But as it poses a public health
I'm
concern
lonely. I don't
on a
have a
global
cat
level,
girl.
both
Girlfriend.
government
It's not
sectors
fair.
and private health organizations
I'm depressed.
need to be more vigilant. Confronting loneliness is not an impossible task, but it is going to take some work.
Yeah.
It requires a genuine
Somebody needs to fix
demonstration of
this.
care and compassion for oneself and others. As mentioned, this episode was many months in the making, so I hope that I could shed some light on the modern origins of loneliness, the causes and the solutions. Although the chatter amongst strangers may have gone in many public spaces, hopefully the chatter on our streets will return one day. So
That's
what are your
nice.
thoughts on this epidemic level of loneliness? Have you personally been affected by it? What's your story? Do you know someone else that's going through loneliness? Please share your experiences and insights in the comments section below. Anyway, that's about it from me.
This is a great video.
My name is Dagogo. If you did like this episode and want to see more on anything else on
Yeah, this was great.
and
Oh,
business,
fuck.
feel free to subscribe to Cold Fusion. It's free.
Yeah, that was great. Depressing video? Was that depressing for you? Like, I don't know. It's not depressing for me. But yeah. Sad, man. Yeah, I mean, disappearance to third place is a big difference. Yeah, using AI to fix loneliness is like ripping down the walls of your house to burn to keep warm. Yeah, maybe. I mean, fuck, man. I grew up with a turtle. Like, what the fuck? Introverts sometimes feel like others impose that I should feel lonely. Yeah, I know. It confused me a lot whenever I was younger. Later, I realized that I prefer to spend a lot of time alone. That's okay. Yeah, see, like, that's the way I feel, too, personally. Like, is it like there's a lot of people that have like this like existential problem, but like for me the problem is like the opposite, where it's like I like being alone, and I you know, it's always other people that are trying to like impose themselves on me, right, for like whatever reason. This skips the turtle comment. I don't give a fuck. Yeah, what's this here related to Monster Hunter World? Oh yeah, I do need to get ready and play that. I need to do that. Maybe I'll look at more of that. I don't know if I'm gonna look at that today though, but yeah. To me, like, honestly, Zach, you aren't alone, are you? That's, yeah, I mean, I'm not, in some ways I am, in some ways I'm not, right? I mean, I think it's a state of mind as well, but, it's hard to say. There's a lot of streamers that feel like lonely and feel like they don't have anybody else and like, you know, nobody understands them. See, for me, I've always been fucked up in the head, and so I'm used to people not understanding me. So it's never been an issue. It's like, oh, nobody understands the way that, like, you know, what this issue is? Yeah, of course they never do, right? It is what it is. You know, fucking same. Yeah, I've always been weird. Just content. Yeah, depressing for me. I had friends and I went out all the time, but I had an accident, put me in a wheelchair, and now I haven't had house guests in 5 years. That's fucking awful, man. Yeah, it's terrible. It fucking sucks. Fucked up in the head? Yeah, I mean, a bit, right? I think that a lot of people are... Link the video. Yeah, I'll link it again for you guys. Yeah, make sure to give it a like. Give the guy a sub. This is so good. This is great. I'm lonely my whole life. Everyone's lonely. Economy is fucked and God is dead. There you go. I believe it's because you already have taste in relationship and friendship or romance. So I guess the video is mainly for those that haven't experienced it at all. I think it depends, right? I mean, there's like a huge spectrum of it, and it's like hard to say whether it's any one good thing or not. Criminally touch emotionally. I try to be very... I try to think about things. This is the problem. And this is why I think other people are also lonely. Is because they never actually try to feel the way another person feels. Or they try to think the way another person thinks. Most of the time, people try to think how they would feel in a situation for another person. Which is like a totally different thing. Because like, oh, put yourself in their shoes. You're still putting yourself in their shoes. You have to think as if you are them, as if they are you. Like, completely stop thinking about it from like your perspective, based off of your values, based off of, you know, what you know or what you think is right. All that stuff doesn't matter whenever you're talking about another person. That kind of empathy requires high emotional intelligence. Well, I mean, like, listen, like, I learned that a lot from back in the day, because I'm going to be honest. The reason why I'm really good at it is because if you can understand somebody on that level, you can get them to pay you more gold to buy a carry or to do something like that. So I took a lot of very deliberate steps to try to figure out how to think like another person can think, and how to get inside somebody's head, and how to look at, okay, well, you know, if they say this, they mean this, and this is what they want, these are their values. And so you have to understand them on such a level that you know what to tell them to where they'll do what you want. It's that simple. Monetizing empathy? Yeah, and that's the reason why I'm very good at it. Or at least I think I am. In some cases I am. I hope you're aware of your behavior. Oh, I am. Absolutely, I am. Oh, yeah. And 100%. Yeah. That's called manipulation? Yeah, basically. But in order to manipulate somebody in a good way, you have to understand them. Because the better you can understand somebody, the better you can take advantage of them. Naturally. Yeah, that's the reason, right? I'm not trying to talk around it. That's exactly what it was. Yeah, doing it on purpose, yeah. And do you look at viewers as children then? You're a streamer most of your adult life? No, that's weird. I don't really, I don't really spend a lot of time talking about, like, my own, like, kind of feelings, because I think that it's needlessly indulgent. But in general, like, I don't really feel like I don't feel like I'm the same as most other people on, like, a very fundamental level. And I learned this whenever I was a kid. Like, just like the way that other kids would react to things, the way I would react to things, and vice versa. Things would bother me, it wouldn't bother them. And so I've always felt very, very separated and very isolated from other people, just in general. And so because of that, I never really, like, I don't really look down on other people, because if anything, I feel like in a lot of ways, I'm the one that's incomplete. I'm the one that's a little bit dysfunctional. Most other normal people aren't like that. It's the same as like I'm very good at some things. I am extremely good at some things. But there is not a single human out there that can do, like, the little memory tests, like, you know, the, like, hitting the buttons in the right order, better than a monkey. Monkeys can do that better than a human can. But it doesn't mean monkeys are smarter than humans. It's learned behavior. Yeah, it's just there are things that you're good at. Like, for example, like I think that, like, I'm very good at some things, but that doesn't necessarily make me better than another person. That's weird. Because there's other people that are way better at other stuff. Like, for me, like, I'll watch other people play games, and the way that they can focus in and just learn something, I am astonished by that. I can't believe that they can do that. But in other ways, I can think about things in ways that they'll never be able to think about them. And so I just think that a lot of people are very different.